just wanted to introduce myself. My name is David Gutierrez. I'm from the Chawathil First Nations. That is located in the Hope area. And my traditional name is Etwell. My mother was the late Tilly Gutierrez, and my father was Alan Gutierrez, both from the Hope area. And my mother was a storyteller within the valley. She also was fluent in the Ho'okame'elam language as well. And a lot of the stories that she would share, she handed them down to me, or I took it upon myself to remember those stories. And what I was told by my mom was that when a story is being told in Ho'okame'elam, it has so much more meaning to it than just in English. Because the teaching that went along with what was being said. My mom's grandmother used to share the story about Soia. A lot of people are familiar with Soia. She was the cannibal woman. Now the teaching was that children were not to be playing out at dark, like when it's starting to get dark. But these children were defiant, and they wanted to test it out to see if it was real, if she was real. And how my mom would explain it. She would come along and they thought they could run, but they would try to run, and then they couldn't. No matter how fast they were running, Soia would just grab a hold of them, no problem, and just put them in her bag and carry on. Now in the story, as it's moving along, she's going up the mountain, and then it's getting dark by this time, and she can't quite see where she's going. And then one of the children escaped. They had a shell, and they cut the bottom of the basket open, dropped out. And in the story, she says, what was that? She says, oh, Granny, you just stepped on a rock. Oh. And then there was another second one that fell out. And then again she asked, what was that? And again they told the same thing, that you just stepped on a rock. So there was 3 left. When she got up there, she took them all out because she couldn't count, I guess, so she counted them. She's looking at them, oh yeah, that looks about right. And so she was standing there, and she got her fire ready. Now, when I'm talking about the fire, my mom in Ho'okame'elam, she would say yuk, yuk, like that, and meaning it was a huge fire, a big fire. So that fire would scare you because in Ho'okame'elam you're emphasizing that it was a big fire, and then you could get hurt from that fire. So she builds this big fire, and my mom was explaining that she would dance, she would sing her song around that fire, and she was dancing. And the oldest one says, "Oh, Sisla, we want to cow it. We want to sing for you." It's a stick, eh? But she was dancing and dancing around the fire, and she grabbed the stick and gave it to the oldest one, then the second one, then the third one. But they had a different intent from just singing for her. They wanted to escape. So as she came around the fire, my mom would explain, and the oldest one said, "Now," and then they pushed her into the fire, and then she burned down. She was saying, "Help me, help me." Instead of helping her, they were pushing her into the fire. And then she burned down to nothing. And the kids went home. In the story, it says there was a man coming home from a hunting trip. And he says, "Man, I'm cold." And he saw that fire. It was just about ready to go out. So he says, "Oh, maybe I can warm up with this fire," he says. So he blew on the fire. Flashed on him a little bit right here. And then he was working with the fire, trying to get it going. And then the second hunter come along. He says, "Chukwit," asking in Ho'okame'elam, "What are you doing?" So he says, "Oh, I'm trying to make fire." "Okay." So he's sitting there and putting the sticks on the fire, and the second one blew on the fire. He blew on it, really made it really red, flashed on him right here from his chest down. Now in the story, it says the third man came along, but he was no ordinary man. He He was what my elder, my great grandmother would refer to as Chaos. Chaos was standing there. Chapwheat. He says, oh, we're cold. We want to make a fire. He says, let me try. And how my mom would stand, he would go like this, and then he blew really hard on the fire, and all the ashes and embers came up, and they were singing that song that Soia was singing. And that's when Cal stood there and looked at those things that were transforming into quail, the mosquito. And Talua, the Pili toss to Mamlachit, the Yasmatok. You're the one that's going to punish the children coming behind. Turned to the first man that came to the fire and said to him, you're the one that's going to feed the people coming behind. Turned him into a bear with the white mark right here, the black bear. Second one, he turned to him and said, you're going to be the one to let the people know that spring is coming. Spring is here. And that's the robin. When you know it's springtime, the robin, he's there. You can see him. A lot of the stories that my mom or my grandmother, my great-grandmother would share, my mom knew the importance of those stories, teachings that went along with it, the importance of respecting the spirit that's out in the forest, and because it's everywhere, no matter where you go, the land that you walk on is chacha, what they call chacha, it means it's sacred. So a lot of our people, they always had that respect when they were walking. So the old people knew that the teachings that went along with being out in the woods when you're gathering berries or when you're gathering roots or cedar bark. There's much teachings that go along with those activities where you have to have that respect for everything that's around you. And so a lot of our elders, they had good stories, and it would teach. And if you listen to the story enough times, then you'll get something from it every time that you listen to it. Yep. I want to thank you. Hello? Testing, 1, 2. It must be me away.